Hello, everyone. Taylor Sanzo here with MassLive, and I am joined with senior producer Nick O'Malley, who has recently delved into the chaos and excitement of airplane food. Hi, Nick.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. Thanks for doing the live with us. So, Nick, you were recently invited to Boston Logan Airport, where you got a full look into how airplane food is made for travelers. Let's get into that. Can you summarize a bit about, the kitchen that you visited that's preparing thousands of meals a day? What goes into that?
Yeah, specifically what I visited is a company called Gate Gourmet, which is the largest provider of airline catering and logistics in the world. They mostly deal with international flights out of Logan. So they work with 12 international airlines, including Qatar Airlines and Air France. And they prepare up to 12,000 meals per day coming out of Logan Airport, which is kind of bonkers. And I got a chance to visit the facility and go through the kitchens and see that, oh, they're making this stuff fresh each day to go onto planes that day. And it's a lot more intensive than I expected and very educational, informative. That's what I was thinking of.
So, some of the details when it comes to preparing all this food are pretty intricate, right? So it seems like food has to be very precise in the way it's prepared. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I got to see these huge cavernous walk-in fridges where they go through like 600 pounds of rice a day. They have 76 types of spices, 125 types of cheese, four types of brie, six types of camembert, and all of this goes into uh, this sort of funnel of logistical foods where airlines request certain meals and the staff at Gate Gourmet is tasked with coming up with the meals and cutting the stuff up. I saw them cutting mangoes by hand, grilling up steaks on a flame grill, prepping that and getting that into very precise portions. I remember at one point I asked about how do you measure the proportions, and I was told the airlines are very specific. Like, we want this crustless quiche, and it has to weigh exactly this many ounces. And we want little slices of asparagus, and it has to be 4 inches long. It cannot be 4.5 inches long, otherwise it will not fit on the plate.
So there's actually science behind it, correct? Or, a way to measure everything out for travelers.
Absolutely. And we're going through this big long kitchen where employees they have a sort of like model plate that they're going off of. And they have iPads with measurements and exact instructions of how to prepare these meals, going off the iPad like, all right, need exactly this, boom, 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 and prepping all the meals.
So when people who travel a lot claim that airplane food is just this thrown together, maybe comes from a frozen box. What do you say to that now, since you've had like an up close look at what really goes into the preparation of it all?
I would say that clearly it's not just a TV dinner that gets thrown into an oven once you get on the plane. Mind you, these are for largely pretty good airlines and international flights. So these are flights going to we're talking like going to Istanbul, we're going to Charles de Gaulle in Paris,
Mhm.
we're going to Dublin. Like a lot of flights that are like more substantial. Like, you're not getting this on like your cheap flight from Logan to your layover in Charlotte or Chicago, or a cheapo flight down to Orlando. These are like 5 hour plus long flights that are providing meals, and plus international is a big thing. The meals on
Mhm.
international flights are going to be a lot better. So if you are flying to Chicago Midway, you might just be getting peanuts and a little thing of Biscoff cookies. It largely depends on the airline that you're going to.
Now I have to ask too, were you able to try any of the meals that they prepared?
Sort of. I didn't
Mhm.
try any of the meals that were going on flights. I got to
Mhm.
try something a lot more interesting.
Nice.
So I got to meet Chef Molly Brandt, who is the executive chef for culinary innovation. I hope I got that title right. For Gate Gourmet, and she is a former contestant on Top Chef, not Chopped. She is trained by the CIA, which of course is the
Wow.
Culinary Institute of America, not the
Not
government, not
the
that other CIA. Uh, Very accomplished chef that was hired sort of because she didn't have a background in airplane food, they wanted to bring someone in that had really cool ideas that they could hopefully turn into airplane food. So some things we got to try were based off of New England classics. We got to try a lobster roll salad, which had like bib lettuce, mayo, lobster, croutons, brioche croutons for the bread. That was really good. That could probably be something that you might see in like a business class or first class. We also tried some crab cakes, which you might get anywhere if you're ordering the shellfish. Speaking of shellfish, one thing that came up a lot was the food safety and dietary restrictions that airlines have to cater to, which is very intense.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that we got to see was that at this Gate Gourmet facility in Boston, they have what they called a chain of command for food temperature. From the moment food arrives to when it's cooked, it has to remain under 40 degrees, and they track to keep it safe from any bacterial growth or foodborne illnesses. Mm-hmm. Then it's cooked, and then it's put in a blast chiller where it has 2 hours to get back under 40 degrees, and then it can't get above 40 degrees until it goes on the plane and gets cooked. If that happens, the food has to get discarded. It's a very meticulous process. Mm-hmm. And then there are the dietary restrictions. It turns out they have separate kitchens for halal cooking and kosher cooking. Some of the airlines that work with Gate Gourmet, for example, Qatar Airways, everything you have out of there comes out of their halal kitchen. So everything is halal you get on there. So they have their own kitchen. There's also a kosher kitchen, which wasn't open. Like they didn't have any flights you needed it for that day, which meant the kitchen was literally under lock and key. There was a tarp, there was a metal grate, there was a padlock, there was like a plastic seal that a rabbi put there themselves. And then that kitchen could not be opened unless it was by the rabbi themselves. So it's a very intense process.
Yeah, I mean, so since you talk about how meticulous it is and there's so much planning that goes behind it, is there anything else that you weren't expecting to see? Anything that surprised you the most? Or have you kind of covered all those bases? Because even now I'm learning so much more than I thought goes into it.
Well, one thing that came up, and mind you, the first thing I'm going to say isn't a shock, is come to my attention that generally speaking, people don't like it when you bring knives on planes, especially like kitchen knives, like a 8-inch chef's knife. That's a no-go. So if you're a kitchen, you got a bunch of knives and you're putting stuff on a plane, you probably want to make sure, hey, no knives going on the planes. So they had this like live tracker on like TV boards of every knife that was in the facility, what type of knife, who signed it out, where it is, and when they signed it back in. And at the end of the night, every knife in the facility is locked up and they do a nightly inventory. So we're looking at like, oh, where's this knife? Oh, it's in the halal kitchen. So-and-so is using it. They haven't turned it back in yet. So keep an eye on that knife.
Wow. And I'm sure that kind of creates like a peace of mind for everyone, right?
It makes me feel a whole lot better.
All right, Nick, anything else you want the audience to know about your story? Anything else you can provide, or do we kind of go through it?
That is the most of it. The big thing is that I want to stress is that the type of food you're going to get on a flight really depends on what type of airline you're going on.
Okay.
So, for example, a couple of years ago, took a flight on Iceland Air, which is very affordable airline, and you could prepay for meals, and you got on the flight. So that's the sort of thing you would get on there. And if I was, say, I'm flying down to Savannah, Georgia later this year, I'm not expecting to be getting that lobster roll salad. I'm probably getting some snacks. So be mindful of sort of which airline you're on. Generally, you get what you pay for. Mind you, these are pretty good airlines. Sometimes you can get a good deal on an airlines. Like Air France, I flew a couple of years ago, got a decent deal direct from Boston to Paris. And yeah, it was a great time, but just because it's airline food doesn't mean it's going to be miserable. And what I can tell you is that if you do get food on airlines, it's going to look exactly what it looks like for the next person next to you, because they're working off an iPad and that asparagus is going to be 4 inches long.
That's awesome. All right, Nick. Well, thank you for joining me. You can read more about Nick's coverage on airplane food made at Boston Logan Airport on masslive.com. We also will have this video is live streaming currently on our Facebook page, so you can go through the comments and click the link to get back to his story there. Thank you, Nick. Take care.
All right, take care, everyone.
Bye.